Hello again. So, we're continuing to talk about adjective clauses. Today, in this video, we're talking about 1310, using which to modify a whole sentence. So, to understand what that means, let's look at a sentence that's just a normal use of which. So, I could say, John has a car, which was very expensive. Take a moment and see, what's the adjective clause there? What's the adjective clause? Think it in your mind, write it on a piece of paper. If you're sitting next to someone, tell them, but what's the adjective clause? Okay, so it's which was very expensive. Now, something that we learned earlier is an adjective clause always gives me information about a thing. It always gives me information about a noun. So, in this sentence, which was very expensive, what is that adjective clause telling me about? What is it giving me information about? About a thing. Okay. So you probably figured out it's telling me about the noun car, and that's absolutely right. So here, adjective clauses normally usually give me information about a thing. Or about a noun. A thing, or a person, or a place. Okay? So, this is what we've learned before this. Adjective clauses give me information about a thing. Now, there's another way that you'll hear Americans use adjective clauses. Let me show you what that is. Okay, take a look at this sentence. John traveled around the world, which was very expensive. Again, take a moment and see what's the adjective clause there. You can pause the video if you want. Remember, you can always do that. Okay, so you probably didn't need to pause the video. Or maybe you did, that's fine. But the adjective clause is the same as up here, which was very expensive. In this case, though, let's think. What is very expensive? In this adjective clause, in this sentence, the adjective clause is telling me about a noun. The car was very expensive. What is very expensive here? And we take a minute and think, well, it comes after world, but is the world expensive? No, that doesn't seem to make sense. So when we look at this sentence, the thing that is very expensive is this whole idea. John traveled around the world. This was very expensive. Traveling around the world was very expensive. So in this case, the adjective clause, what's expensive? This whole sentence, this whole idea is very expensive. So let me just write a note here. In this sentence, we say that the adjective clause is modifying or giving me information about this whole idea, about this whole sentence. So here, sometimes an adjective clause can tell me about a whole idea. Or I could say, a sentence. So if I come over here and I say, John traveled around the world, that's a whole idea. John traveled around the world, that's a sentence. So, which was very expensive tells me about this whole idea. How is that? Let me give you another example. So I might say, Jasper lied to me. Which was very dishonest. Okay, now let's take another look at this sentence. Let's take a look at this sentence. First, again, what is the adjective clause? You can pause the video if you need to think. Okay, yeah, the adjective clause is which was very dishonest. Now, I say, well, what does which was very dishonest tell me about? Well, it tells me about this whole idea. It tells me about this whole idea. So again, sometimes an adjective clause can tell me about a whole idea or about a whole sentence. Jasper lied to me. That's a whole sentence. That's a whole idea, we could say. That's a whole sentence. Let's try, I have one more thing I want to tell you, and then I'm going to ask you to try to make a sentence or two like this. Okay? Important point. When I use an adjective clause like this to modify a whole sentence, in other words, when the adjective clause tells about the whole idea, not just one word, not just one noun, when it tells about the whole idea, I always use a comma. So here, when an adjective clause tells about a whole sentence, oops, then I always use a comma. Okay? So when it tells about a whole sentence, I always use a comma. Okay. Now, let me give you some more. Actually, I'm going to give you half examples, and I'm going to ask you to finish them in your mind or on a piece of paper. So I'm going to erase this. And I will say, Mary, what does Mary do? Mary visited her sick friend. Now think about this. Mary visited her sick friend. What would you say that is when Mary visits a sick friend? See if you can figure out a way to finish this. Mary visited her sick friend, which was blank. See if you can think of at least one or two ways to say this, to finish this sentence, excuse me. Yeah. Mary visited her sick friend, comma, which was. So think, how would you describe visiting a sick friend? What could you say about it in this adjective clause? Take a minute and think. I suggest at this point, pause the video. Think about it. Maybe write a sentence or two. Okay. There are a few things I could say. I could say Mary visited her sick friend, which was very kind. Mary visited her sick friend, which was very nice of her. Oops. Mary visited her sick friend, which was very thoughtful. And all of this is telling me about this whole idea, visiting her sick friend. Okay. I hope that's becoming clear. Again, anything that's not clear in these videos, please make a note to yourself and ask me about it in our conferences or ask Tran. Remember, Tran is available Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5:30 to 6:45, and you can zoom in. I'll put the Zoom link to talk to Tran in the homework, and so you can do that. Also, you can talk to me in our conferences, or you can make an appointment. Oh. Which? Okay, now I'd like you to try the opposite of this. Can you write a sentence here and have the sentence say something that might make somebody sad? So take a minute and think. How could you finish that? Maybe pause your video. Okay. Now, let me give you may have a very different one, but let me give you a few ideas. You could say, Bill lost the game, comma, which made him sad. Or I could say, Bill was fired, which made him sad. Or, let's see, I could say, Bill's girlfriend left him, which made him sad. So all of these things, he lost the game, he was fired, his girlfriend left him, all of them made him sad. I think that's everything I have to say about this. Again, any questions, write them down. You can ask Tran, you can ask me, and I have one more video to post this week.